Hi, I'm Donna Dewberry. I'm in the Plaid studio today with another project in the Let's Paint Wreath of the Month program. Over 25 years ago, I created the FolkArt One Stroke painting technique, where I'm teaching you how to properly load the brush, blend shade and highlight in every stroke, just one stroke. So today we're going to be doing September's Harvest beautiful wreath that we are going to have so much fun together with. So in this wreath, we're filling it with pumpkins and squash. We're putting fall leaves of every color in here. We've got pods and we have wheat, lots of fun treasure gold painted on it. And it's going to be in a dark blue wreath, which is something new. And we have a burlap bow to tie it off. And Plaid's even made it easy for us because they've made this beautiful wreath. It's 19¼ inches wide. It's birch plywood. It's perfect for your front door. It has 2 holes already pre-drilled, and you can turn it this way and they'll hang this way or this way. So how fun is that? I also like to share with you that on the Plaid site, which is plaidonline.com/letspaint, you can find all the 3 wreaths that we use, and you can paint on 2 sides of them. So you only need 6 instead of 12, which makes it really nice. And there is a kit that we made, which is called the Wreath of the Month kit. I've hand painted a folder that is full of all the worksheets that you're going to use during each month, full of the paints that we use and the package of brushes and sponges, everything you need to be painting along with me each month. So come join me in the studio and let's paint our September wreath. Let's take a close look at the wreath that we're going to paint today. I love that we have the deep background, and with fall we have pumpkins of different kinds and squash and multitude of leaves that I'm just going to have a great time showing you how to do. We have little berries. We have gold, we have treasure gold, and I put it all throughout the painting. And so you can put as little or as much as you want. And I want to show you next how we're going to get this wreath prepped, ready for us to go and have a nice project finished with. Prep work, that's very important. And so I want you to see that we have a birch plywood wreath that's all cut out. We have 2 holes here, which is the way I'm going to hang this wreath. But remember, there's options where you can put the 2 holes there to hang it at an angle. I call it like a diamond shape. All right, so you choose, but the pumpkins are going to be laid out in here, and that's going to be how I decide where my wreath is going to be. So I want you to think about that when you're laying out your hanging positions for you there. We're going to take our sponge, our sanding sponge, and you can feel there's little bits of green that are lifted, and I'm going to go around and sand some of that off and get it ready to do our first base coat on here. Now what I've used to base coat is I base coat this with a neutral color of some type. So an off-white or a cream or whatever, and get a nice coat on here. So you put 1 coat, you let it totally dry. Then when that's dry, it's going to raise the grain. So you're going to go back again and fill it and knock off the grain so you get a smooth painting surface. All right, so I did another step on this. After you do the first step and the first base coat and you sand it, sand off the grain, then you do your second coat. You don't have to sand it then because it's all smooth at that point. Well, what I did next, let me move this out of the way, and I'm going to bring in the first base coated piece that I've got ready here. Now what's happened on this wreath is that I have taken our multi-surface cobalt blue, and I've done a couple coats on here. For 1 coat doesn't quite cover everything, but almost, because it has a high coverage. But I'm going to come back and I did a 2nd coat lightly to get it prepped for me. Now you might see on my original wreath I did take some burnt umber with some cobalt and I shaded the edges. So I can do that now with my painter sponge, and I've lightly dampened this when I was cleaning it. I'm going to get some more of the dampness off of this. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take a foam plate and put a little bit more of the cobalt blue. So I put cobalt blue, just a touch, and I kind of use it the way I use floating medium, where I put floating medium and a little bit of color. I like to use the background color and the color I want to shade with. And this is burnt umber. So I'm going to get the cobalt and work it in, just because it's the color I'm going to float the burnt umber with. A little bit of burnt umber. Now, you could use other darker colors to get different shades, or if you were light and doing it lighter, you would do this the same way, cobalt with a little bit of titanium white. All right, so I'm just darkening the edges, and I have done this process right now after I've painted my wreath when I felt like it needed more, but I've got the advantage of now I've already have painting it once and feeling like, oh, I needed to darken that. Does that sound good? All right, so cobalt blue, burnt umber. And go all around the edges. And you can put as much, I can come out more or less, all right? I might do more depth in it on the bottom maybe. Okay, so you can see that is a simple step, but I think it really adds to the depth on the wreath. Little circles on each one of those. And there we go. All right. Now I'm going to take, just to help you out, I'm going to make sure I put my sponge in my water. Don't forget to do that. I hate it when I forget that, and then I go back and I'm like, dang, it's dried up and these little nubs that go all on your piece, your painted pieces. All right, so as you see on this wreath, I went around probably about 4 fingers deep, wide, all around here, and just did a wandering grapevine. I'm just going to put this so you're seeing it, and then I kind of gauged how wide to do the grapevine. So on the bottom, I didn't show as much because we have all the heavy pumpkins and squash that are going to be down here. Okay, so I'm going to get the reusable teaching guide, and then we're going to get started on here. Let's put this right here. All right, so I'm looking at my grapevine, and on the guide, you're going to be able to practice and see the colors we're going to use and the shading as we do the shading on our pieces. So on the back side, where we start with the grapevine, because that's the step we're ready for, I want you to see that I use some Pueblo. And so I'm going to put, I've got burnt umber, titanium white, Pueblo, I'm going to put out, and let's see, I have treasure gold we're going to use later, and yellow ochre. So let's put some yellow ochre out there also. So this is going to be your guide to help you to have success and remind you of what's next. And I'm going to get my 3/4 flat brush, and I've wet it. I've put it on the paper towel to get the excess water out of there. And you can practice right on here. But before we start practicing, we're going to make an eraser. All right, so I'm going to take my paper towel, fold it into quarters, and I'm going to have a wet corner so that I'm ready, because these are lightly coated so that I want you, so you can wipe off, but I want you to have it ready so you don't let it sit and dry, because the multi-surface paint, the wonderful thing about FolkArt multi-surface paint is it has a sealer in it, and it's meant to stay well. All right, so let's come in here and pick up, the first option is we're going to pick up burnt umber and Pueblo. Now I've got the big 3/4 inch brush, but on your guide you're going to practice with a 12. So I just want you to see that I'm working this in, and I can alternate what colors I pick up. So you're going to stroke on here and see, let's get our 12. I'm going to stroke on here with the 2 colors, and you can see if you get the colors that I've got ready for you there, or when I even put the yellow ochre in, I can come here and see if I'm getting that shading. So you just keep working till you get the shading, and see I don't have enough of the yellow ochre so I can come back and do a little bit more. All right, and I even put a swatch of the treasure gold so you can see. So what you're going to do, see how nice that comes off if you do it right when you're done. All right, so I'm going to come here and show you that this arrow from here, push down, stand up, kind of like you're doing ribbon. And you're going to wander, push down, stand up. So when you're standing up, you're on the chisel. So we're going to be on the chisel, and we weave that grapevine in and out. So see, it's got 3 colors in there, and that's what you want to see. All right. You're going to love this because it even shows beautiful blend when you're using multicolors. All right. So I'm going to take this off with my little fancy eraser here, and we're ready to go. So let's get our grapevine in place. I've chalked out the positioning for it, so we can just leave our double loader right in the middle. All right, so I want you to know, because we're on a dark surface, I'm gonna lead with the dark color, because whatever follows is the predominant color. So I'm gonna touch on the chisel, I'm gonna lift up slightly, so the last little bristles are going to show, okay? So I will need to continue to come over here. When I pick up paint, I might just pat it so it gives you a nice chisel again. So I'm gonna come in here, and it's okay sometimes to push heavier, like I showed you, chisel, pressure, pressure. Now, it's gonna be kind of bland until I put a few lighter colors in. See how bright that gets? And it makes this beautiful cobalt background just pop. Or the cobalt beautiful background makes the vines pop because of the color in here. Okay, so I kind of, a little bit more than 3, that's about how wide, and you want it to wander around. And of course, this is like a map for where all the leaves are gonna go. So you know the grapevine's under there, and it might peep here and there, but you don't have to worry about it all being exactly perfect. Just kind of be randomly loose as we come around. All right, see how I go back in, pick up, and flatten? Because the brush is already double loaded, 2/3 full, it's got plenty of paint inside the brush. We just keep using up the paint on the edge here, on the chisel edge. So I'm not, like I told you, I'm not worrying about too much paint along here, too much wreath. Okay. See, really loose. And the way this looks good, remember, is you're slightly lifting the front edge. Now, if you have a light background, you would want the dark to be following. See, whatever follows is predominant. So here's the follow, and it's dark. It doesn't show as well. Also, if you're not up on the chisel, look at this. It's like big branches. Now, we don't want big branches, so the key is we stay up, light, and those last bristles are bringing it with you. Now, the important thing is that wherever this goes, you don't want to do sideways. You want to follow. The ferrule is going, and you take your hand and you're following the chisel. Where you want the chisel to be, actually. Okay? Now, the next thing that's going to happen here, all the highlights and the gold, I did some treasure gold in here. All of that happens at the end because I'm not sure where all the leaves and all are going to go yet when I'm doing my vine. Okay? Now, in here it does show quite a bit. So let's come in here. I'm going to flip it and put some dark burnt umber on top of the light every once in a while. And then I can come back and put yellow ochre in here. So the key is, I've made a lot of grapevine vines from in the woods where I used to live. We would go out and make these beautiful grapevine wreaths, and so I really know what they look like. And sometimes when you're painting, it really helps you to really know what it looks like. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to add leaves. But before I add leaves, see how loose I'm getting? All right, there you go. Before I add leaves, I'm going to chalk in the main feature in, I don't know, I love the leaves. I think they're the main feature, but really my accent's going to be as if I had a hanging grapevine actual wreath and with a twisted grapevine, and I'm putting artificial pumpkin and squash in here. So I want to take and decide where I'm going to put this. So I'm going to decide, I always look at halfway, so if you're looking at halfway, then this segment is basically where I'm going to put the pumpkin. So I'm going to come right in here, and I did lift it up because you need to put some big leaves under it. So the good thing about chalk is that you can sketch around with it, all right, and get the shape we want. And then, and I have to do this because I want to do those leaves, remember? We're going to put the stem in there. And before I finish this, I'm going to come in and make a circle and decide how big I want the bottom of that squash. And then it's going to get a little bit bigger here. And then off of here, it's not a crooked neck squash, but it's another cool looking squash. I don't actually know the name of that squash. All right, so then right here's your center. Now, just so I can see if I'm happy with it, I'll go around like this, because each one of these segments, like on a pumpkin, so that you're going to go around this edge. So all you really need to know is the shape, but then this squash is right under that one. All right, so we need to know this as we take and we base coat the pumpkin. All right, so I chalked this in, so my pattern's ready, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up my 3/4 inch flat brush, but I'm going to practice first on my teaching guide. So you're going to see the large leaves, because what I want to do is the large leaves first, and they're all pretty large, but I put actually I'm going to take that back. I put the darker green leaves in the background, and then a lot of the reds and the golds and the other leaves go on top before we put the squash. So the squash is going to lay over the green and some of the red leaves, all right, red maple leaves. All right, so what I'm going to do is find my leaves right here, this leaf, then later we'll be doing some of these other leaves, all right? So let's start right here with our large green leaf. Okay, so I'm going to get my sap green so we can start our leaves, and I actually use yellow ochre with it, so I'm going to put those next to each other in my double loader. And I'm going to use my 3/4 inch flat, and we're going to find it on the guide here, and it tells you right here what size brush and everything that you're going to need. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I dried that off, remember, we're going to pick up 1/3 yellow ochre, 2/3 sap green, and we're going to work this in, and we're pushing till we're 2/3 up the brush. So sometimes you might just need to dip some color. We still haven't used the floating medium because we've got such a nice slick surface, okay? Now what we want to do is check it out. Are you happy with that blend? And then I want you to start here, and it has where you start at. And the first time you do it, I want you to go really slow and stand up to the chisel. Now it's a lot nicer when you move quicker, but I really need you to get that movement. Now I turned it upside down. Depending if you're lefty or righty, you're going to do the opposite side if you're left-handed, but all lefties adapt to the right-hand world in different ways. So whatever's comfortable for you lefties, all right? So see, I chiseled edge and I come 2/3 into the leaf, or 3/4, but never all the way to the tip. Now I want you right now to wipe this off gently, and we will be ready. So I'm going to put this right next to me so I remember what I stroked and how I stroked it. But just remember, if you're not through the grapevine when I'm through, you stop the video, get caught up, and then you can start again. It's really nice to watch it all the way through and then come back and practice and be ready, okay? So this is what I did first. I came around here and decided where these were gonna go. So outside of the squash, I came right here, and I'm gonna be against the squash, so I don't need a V, but I can start here and see that smooth move that we did? Also picking up more for the second half. And I can come all the way up here on this half. We might have lots more in here that cover that leaf, but I want to go back in here and then pull the stem, all right? So let's come here and pick up a little bit more yellow ochre and work it in. If I want it a little bit lighter, I can just keep picking up the yellow ochre a little bit more, or even a little bit of the wicker white. Just a little bit if I feel like I want to change the color up a little bit. Then over here, there was also right in here another leaf. See how nice it is when I change that color up just a little bit. All right, and then you pull the stem into there. All right, so those were the first two that were way underneath that you might not even notice, but we're gonna put other leaves on top of it and the squash on top of it. So then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit right in here. I am gonna get a little bit of floating medium and work that in right here. So sometimes if you have a little bit of texture, you might notice that I slow down, little teeny bit of white. So when you are worried about it covering, if I go fast or quick, I have some dry areas. Beautiful thing about one stroke, you can stroke right over it. But look, if I slow it down a little bit, I get a nice pretty edge. Okay, so we've got those underneath green, large green leaves. I'm gonna come over here. And sometimes you might even want to use some brighter yellow. Let's put a little bit of moon yellow. And you decide if you want little bits of wicker white, little bits of moon yellow, the colors where the light hits it. There we go. All right, so remember it's right here to remind you what we're doing. See, that's a little bit brighter. And I can turn this around. It's easier to paint sometimes when you turn it around so you can get your hand there. And then y'all can see it also better, and I'm not covering it. There we go. All right, so I put a big leaf here. And we've got 3 more leaves to add on here. So right here, this is the big one. So I can kind of determine how big do I want that. All right, so it's gonna come right here. You know, I want you to see that sometimes I just put medium on one corner. I picked up all 3 little colors there. There we go. And on this side, lay that down. Now you want to put a lot of pressure on this so you can still meet in the middle and come to the tip and pull a stem in the middle. And the beauty of it going in the middle is if you have too much paint in the middle, it kind of wipes it up. Okay, A little bit more here. Let's put another one up here. You can kind of place it wherever you would like to, and then put your other leaves around it. And some of it overlapped, like I told you earlier, and then I have a big one up here. Not super big. There you go. And then you pull your stem into there. All right. Now, I made sure I put all the dark greens, so you're going to look around and see which ones and where they go as you're doing this. We also, at this point, are going to check out the colors that we're going to base coat. Base coat our white pumpkin, and we're base coating our squash or the smaller pumpkin. It could be either one. If you're looking straight at it, it might be a small pumpkin. And it is yellow ochre, and mostly in that center it's going to be yellow ochre. So let's get our white paint first. I've got a very clean brush. You'll be surprised how well the coverage is with this wicker white over this cobalt blue, because it's got like more pure pigmented. I'm going to be careful because, see, it picked up a teeny bit of green. So ideally, you let everything dry, and then you start base coating. And I know y'all have heard me say I don't have a lot of patience. I like to just get going on it. Now, look how well this is covering this. Really nice. I do come and put a second coat later just to make sure that it covers well. And what you're going to see, guys, is that sometimes it's really nice to have that shadow showing through. It gives you more depth. All right, so see how quick that was? Then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off a little bit of white, but I still leave the white on the inside of that brush, because as I'm coming around here, remember those little scallops we did? We're going to go around a little bit and put those in here. All right, so it's just not round. What I found that when I added those little dimples around, it just made it look so much better. All right. Now this, you do see that we do need a nice coat on here, mostly because yellows are more transparent. Okay. And as this dries, you'll see that I added a little bit of moon yellow highlight. Okay. All right, and then our squash, I'm going to wipe off a little bit of this, of the yellow ochre and white, and I'm going to pick up the moon yellow. Now this moon yellow, it is going to be behind this pumpkin. All right. There we go. See how that really shows through? So a little trick I will do is I will take and add white in the beginning. So when I put the second coat on, see how that white covers so much better? Just that little bit, okay? So now what we're gonna do is finish this little nook up here, the crook of the neck of the squash. All right, and we're gonna let that dry before we put another coat, because you're gonna keep seeing streaks if you just keep putting coats. Now, I did come in here with a 12, and I'm gonna come right in along this top of the pumpkin with Pueblo, and I added dark brown, the burnt umber. So burnt umber and Pueblo. And then we'll shade more. I'm just getting that original base coat in here. And we stop about there. All right, so now what you want to see is, let's get our chalk, and I can go ahead and erase the center chalk here. Oops, maybe not. All right, so what I want to do on here is I want to put the red maple leaf. And so it's going to come up and behind that squash, and then it's going to kind of lay over some of this green. So I came here and here. Okay, so that's where we want to be before we start our next step. Okay, so I've got double coats on each one of our pumpkins and squash, and everything's dry and I'm ready to go here, but I needed to bring in some other colors. So you saw I had moon yellow, and then I have the apple red, and I brought in some treasure gold. So that's the different bottle that you have. It's the FolkArt Treasure Gold. It's wonderful, and it's also water-based, so it's very user-friendly. Now, what we're going to do, since this is dry, I can lay my teaching guide on here, and we're going to practice a little bit of this red gold leaf that I'm going to add treasure gold to the edge, and I call that kind of like a red maple leaf. All right. Sometimes I just make up shapes of leaves, but this one looks like a maple leaf to me. Now, what we've used first is that I've got this dampened brush that I laid on the paper towel, and then I'm picking up a couple of the colors here, the yellow ochre and the red, so I can dip the yellow ochre and come over here and work in the red, and then see that all worked in. All right, and every once in a while I might pick up the moon yellow to brighten it up a little bit. All right, and sometimes you'll see that it looked like every once in a while you'll see that I add a little bit of burnt umber to the red, maybe to darken to the apple red, and work that in. All right, so I've got a little bit on my ferrule. All right, then I can also come in and dip the moon yellow. Now you need the yellow ochre or the moon yellow color on that edge, so that when you add the treasure gold, I'm going to dip into the treasure gold and work that in a little bit. We don't want it worked in too much because we want it to really stand out as treasure gold. Now right here's the one that's got the treasure gold actually on it. All right, so that's a pretty good blend. Now, what I want you to see when we're doing this leaf is that there's different segments, all right? So what's going to happen is we're going to come right up here, and we're going to wiggle up to the tip and slide down. Number 2 wiggles up and slides down. And number 3 to the point. All right, now you might feel more comfortable as you go, like here. As you get more comfortable, you can slide up and down, then stay, pressure, back, and as you put that pressure, you're wiggling, and you can see I didn't break them all up singly, so you can do that also, but it's fine to go up and down, and follow your chalk pattern. All right, so, and if you want it darker, then you're going to pick up more of the burnt umber to get that darker leaf. All right, so let's wipe it all off with our little handy eraser. Okay, and then we'll be ready, which you're going to practice this a little bit, right? I even put this like under wax paper or plastic on top, so that I can keep my practice sheets and then just keep going, okay? So let's put this to the side, and you're going to see as we start stroking on here how the coverage is really good, especially with the treasure gold. All right, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the burnt umber with the apple red, moon yellow, yellow ochre, get it all blended in, and then you're just going to touch a teeny bit of the treasure gold as you go here. So let's look back here at this one, and we're going to go, we're going right up to the squash and the pumpkin, and I want to do this first so that I can go back when I'm shading the pumpkins and squash and be able to accent it and make it look like it's behind it. So see, we're going out and in and to the point. All right, so I want this a little fuller through here, so it is okay to go like this a little bit if you need to. All right, and I really truly am going to turn this upside down. So now that looks a little duller than I want, so I'm going to go ahead and put some brighter, the apple red bright, and then just the treasure gold, because the underneath is already loaded well. And I'm going to come in here and cover all this. Come along here. I do want to make some movement even though it's going to not show. It does show in the middle. All right, so you can see you might want to come along here and smooth out that red a little bit because I have a pretty heavy ridge there. And look at this, I can see from this view that it was a little dry there. All right, and so now we're just going to pull our stem in. All right, now I want this not to be light here, but you're going to be able to see that when we float it, that we're going to go in there and float a lot of burnt umber to give you depth, like it's way behind. Right in here, I need to restroke it because my view didn't show that I had really gone into it. Okay, so there we are. Now, that one's kind of poked in. This one, we're going to be able to get most of the red maple leaf in your view here. So let's get yellow ochre and apple red and treasure gold. All right, so let's come right here, up. Let me show you the best thing to do before we start around these guys is to go around like that. All right, and even I can come in here and take it off. See, I got a little bit on there. I like to show you things that I do to cover up things that I don't want on there. Now this is what we're going to do. We're going to come in here, wiggle down, up and back down. Make sure that we have enough red to the edge. We just want that the treasure gold to glow on the outside edge. Now let's go back here and come back into the middle. So we need a point, back, and then to the center. All right. So I hate to keep turning it upside down, but right in here, I would turn it so I can comfortably get to it. All right. And just smooth out like a feather, barely touch it if it doesn't quite meet. All right, that's a good little trick to show you, and it's easy while it's wet to fix that. Okay, so let's go. We've got one more here, and then I had my triangle, and then I put one up here, up high, to splatter it a little bit around. Red. Apple red, burnt umber, work it in. And the other way you can do this, if you're being more comfortable, it is really important that you kind of draw these in, because this little leaf deal where we're going out in, can kind of fluster you a little bit. And here's the center line. I also have the other one up here, and it's going to hang down a little bit, okay? So the other way to do this is that we can just use yellow ochre on the outside. Remember, I wiggle up and wiggle back down and do your second one. the tip is dry. I just want to show you this because this is the other option. As you're doing this wiggling and coming down here, see, I lost my gold. One more. Now when that's dry, I'm going to wipe this off a little bit and show you. And I have still a little bit of red, and then I side load with the treasure gold. So then you can just come back here and highlight the tips. And it's still double loading because what we're doing is we still have the apple red, and then we're just going to touch the tips with the gold. Now this doesn't show as much right now as it does when it's totally dry. It's just really beautiful. And we have one more and we're done with this leaf, which I had fun with this leaf. I hope you guys like this as much as I do, because I think it just richened the whole, giving these pops of red, the whole piece. Okay, so up and back, and to the point. Go get more paint, a little bit of treasure gold there, back, to the point, back. So you notice, look, I chisel up to a tip, lean the brush back, push down, come back up with pressure, stand up, lean the bristles back, and lay down. And you can see I'm out of paint. So when I came here, I needed to lay down, more paint, and then right here, I come back up to the tip. And see, this one's a little skinnier and it's not as full, okay? So you can start seeing a little bit of the metallic. And later on, I go around and just add metallic everywhere. So you might see, ooh, I need a little bit more metallic on here. And it's easy to put that on afterwards, okay? All right, so let's watch this brush out. And the next thing I want to do is shade in the pumpkins and the squash. And then I start laying other leaves on top. There's more leaves I can put in here now, but I like to just stop here, and we're going to use our 12 to shade more of this pumpkin. So I'm going to take and practice this. I've got my eraser still. I want to make sure I still have a clean spot. And I want you to look back on here. The squash is interesting because we pull the green up, and then there's this rippled edge on the edge that gives you the segments that these squash have, which that's kind of fun. And we use the 12 to do those. But then on this side, we're going to start shading with yellow ochre, and then after I shade with the yellow ochre, I shade with burnt umber. And see, you're just gonna flat and go around here and shade in here, but you're gonna go underneath each segment to give it the depth. And then when we're all done, we actually come back and add some gold, treasure gold in there, okay? So let's start with our pumpkin, and keep the guide there so you don't, so it helps you remember. All right, so I'm going to get my floating medium on the brush, and then I'm going to come over here and just dip a little bit of yellow ochre. And I don't want it too strong, so we're going to just work it in. So we want the pumpkin, when it's all done, not looking pure white, but it has a nice white look to it. So I'm going to come here, see how I start here, and then I'm going to bring the segment right here. Now what happens is that this is the back side of this segment of the pumpkin, all right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I still have yellow here, yellow ochre there. I can come along here, and that's going to wrap around the edge. A little bit more. All right. So the key is to make this look like you're getting some depth, is you're going to be on the right side of the segment. This side of the segment's going to come right under here. All right. And then I'm going to keep coming here. Now the yellow ochre is on the side that you want it to be showing. So right in here is another segment. So you don't even have to do anything just by putting this there. It's going to make this look like it's higher and higher than this. Oh, that's really good. I put my finger on each one of them for you. Okay, so we have one more right in here on the right side. And then let's come a little bit more in here. This is a little skinny one right there. I'm gonna wash that off. Look what happens. I can just take it right off with a little bit of water. And I keep a paper towel there so you can wipe it. Go back to my medium and just do a little stronger place right there. And I want this to come down all the way in here where we're gonna put some darker brown anyway. All right, so let's get some medium, floaty medium, and pick up our burr number. Floating medium, burr number, let's work this in. Now I'm going to put this right on top. Sometimes I might let this totally dry a little bit, but this is already dry here. And I can add, this one right here is dry. So I'm going to come right in here. Also, I can also add some along here. See, back and forth till you get it smooth. And then I come along here, way later, I'm gonna come along here and shade some dark here to divide this from this, separate it. And then I'm gonna pick up more burnt umber, and I can come right in here to get these little segments in here, which makes the pumpkin look way better. All right, and then I chisel edged. I can use some Pueblo and burnt umber to chisel edge some movement in the stem, where I'm just coming in here and bringing each one of these little grooves in here from where we dimple there, just on the chisel of the brush, all right? And then I kind of twist it in here, and we'll use a 2-script liner a little bit later, okay? And see more of that. So anyway, there we are. The burnt umber put in here later is gonna make a big difference, but let's go to this guy. Because what I did is I worked a little bit of the moon yellow right in here in this section as I was doing my second coat. But what I wanna share with you now and go right back here and see is that we started floating the burnt umber. So I'm gonna get floating medium, and let's get our Pueblo. We'll also come back with burnt umber on this pumpkin also, but the first thing I did was get some of the warm shading underneath right there. See how nice it is? And it starts giving you the rounding effect. See, I can push it so it's not as white as my 12 flat brush, right? All right, now we are gonna find the center, right? So then we're gonna bring these so it looks like, just like these little segments on the pumpkin. All right, it looks like a big flower, but because it's with the squash and the pumpkin, you're gonna know what it is. All right, so as we're coming around, making sure we have these little segments in here, when we do the burnt umber, which I'm not doing it right now, but I am gonna put the stem out of burnt umber with the 12. So I'm gonna pick up the 12 with burnt umber on both sides. And I'm just going to paint, first of all, a little like C right here, a little C, rounded so it looks like it's in the pumpkin. And then this one's just got a little bit of a nub on it instead of the full, instead of a cut stem, and instead of the curly stem. All right, so that's ready to dry. We're gonna go jump on some leaves and paint some of those leaves while these are setting up a little bit better. But the last thing I want to do is flip this over and let's look at the squash again. So the first thing I did with the 12, I've cleaned the 12, and I'm picking up the sap green on the chisel. All right, so I like to go in here and try it without medium because I can get this dry brush effect. And if you go look at the squash, you will see it just striates up like that. It's not straight, it's kind of brush looking up the squash. All right, so I'm going to come on this side. See how I curve around the edge and then I drag. So pressure and drag, pressure and drag. The key right here is I want this smooth, but the brown burnt umber is going to help us do that. But it is nice to stroke it there sometimes. All right, so I'm coming all along here. All right, and I do want to come up a little bit more on this side. Okay, now what's going to happen is I'm going to take yellow ochre on this clean brush and I'm going to come along this edge right here and I wave it in on the chisel, in and out. A little bit more yellow ochre. And what's going to really make this look realistic is when we come back and put the burnt umber on it. So right now what's happening is the yellow ochre is just giving you that ridge on the squash. And I'm going to shade in between here with the burnt umber, and so you'll get the depth. So chisel and then kind of wave the chisel and come down. All right? Now, shading makes a multitude of difference. So let's let that stay. And let's start doing another leaf. I've got lots of leaves to put in here, we do. And so we're going to come here and look at this, the golden leaf, which looks like an oak leaf to me. Sometimes I put a little bit of Pueblo and a little apple red with the yellow ochre, and sometimes I did a little bit more of the Pueblo and yellow ochre with just touches of the yellow, moon yellow. All right, so let's take the 3/4 inch brush and come over here and practice this. And then I'm going to put this here so I remember we're going to draw out the leaves and where we want those to go. So let's put this right here and let's look at loading this 3/4. All right, so I have Pueblo. Oh, let's go between and grab them. Yellow ochre, Pueblo. Let's go over here. We can go right into one of these cubbies. All right, so I want to then pick up either more yellow ochre and a little bit of moon yellow. Okay, so we're going to have our eraser ready. And I want you to see this movement. It's going to go up and down. So look, it's smooth, a smooth roll, because those dimples, when they go in on this leaf, they are just like this. In, come back up, it's rounded. And then we have a rounded top. So when we put the other side on, you're going to come all the way and cover my strokes and then come here and make this finish with a nice rounded top. And then we pull the stem in it. All right. Now I make these without them touching in the middle so you're clear that we want to have this side and this side on the stem, okay? So make sure you put this by you so you're remembering, and after you practice, you want to have it right there with you. And I'm going to put down my double loader so that I can draw out where I want my leaves to be. So one of these fun leaves that we're doing is right in here. So if you do this curve, that always helps me to see that's the movement I want, and it has a rounded tip. And then right off of this, in between both of these, the squash and the pumpkin, I have a nice size one in here, curved, and they're kind of elongated a little bit. All right, there's that one. So we have two there, and I'm gonna check out mine over here and see what I did. A little bit of curve. All right, so see how that's just laying over and making a nice look. Then we're gonna come back and put some wheat in between. And then way up here, I ended up putting a really nice one here. Okay, so I have one that's kind of gonna go in between these two, but I might put a little bit on our red maple. Okay, so pretty much that's where I put all of these. Now we have a couple more leaves that are the same colors, but they're just fillers, and I didn't name those. All right, they're more like these right here, but they have the same coloration as what we're doing on these. All right, so I'm gonna move this up and start right on this top one. So I'm going to take the colors that I just picked up, the yellow ochre, a little bit of moon yellow, some pueblo, and sometimes I like them, I think I pretty much kept them those lighter tones. I didn't put white. I was looking to see if I did white. I can put a teeny bit of medium. Feels a little sticky, so that will help it move. All right, so I'm gonna come right in here, and I want it to look like it comes behind the green leaf. Sometimes I decide after I've done my green, oh, I need this one to come behind, and it's easy to make it happen, all right? So we're gonna come right under here, in, out, and so I do a little wave. You see that? Just a little wave. And then we pull the stem into it, and the stem's not showing. So let's do a darker stem. There. All right, I might even put a little bit of burnt umber in here. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna start up here. Let's pick up all those pretty bright colors again. Let's put another maple leaf in here. So right here, see how nice it even covers the grapevine? That's because I have enough paint on the brush. Most of the time, you guys say to me, oh, I can see through it, it's not covering it for me. And most of the time I hear, I don't put that much paint on my brush. So if you're out there and you're thinking, look how much paint, I want you to look how much paint I put on. Lots of paint. All right, so now let's see, I'm gonna try the light in here. There we go, that light covers it. I think I'm gonna go over this one because I didn't like that last ending there. And let's put light because that's gonna work better. There we go. All right, so we only have these three down here. See how the brightness is popping now? I love it. It makes me think I'm ready for the fall. What about you? All right, all the holidays, the leaves falling. There we go. See, I can tell that I don't have enough paint because I'm struggling to cover the outside edges. Remember what I said about outside edges? I want them nice and smooth, which means you have to have enough paint. There we go. See, I'm going to smooth it out one more time. And I have to take my other brush and just clean that up a little bit. There we go. So it's easy to paint next to it. You just have to make sure if you go on it, you cover it up. Take it off. Okay, let's do a couple more over here. Now I'm starting to need more paint. Do you see that? A little bit of yellow. All right. So remember, I can go heavy around the bottom, smooth, and then start. This one's got more than 3. I went up, or more than 2. I went up 3 here, and then the smooth top. All right, more paint. Up. Up and up. So my hand doesn't move that way, so let's do it over here. Because you can come all the way around here and back down. Okay? And pull a nice stem in the middle of that. And then we have our last one. Now, the chalk a little bit takes away from that, but it'll be fine. When you take it off, you'll see it's nice and smooth. All right, so I'm going to come right in here. See the wave? It's a nice wave. You're not going to stop. And it's kind of, I tell people, it's kind of like ribbon candy. Curve and up and curve and up. And then when you pull the stem in, it cleans up anything in there that you didn't like. All right, so look how vivid this is on this cobalt blue. Isn't that nice? All right, so I did tell you while I had these colors, I'm gonna pick up some more moon yellow. And when I do this, I'm gonna add a little bit of titanium white. So see, there we are, a little bit more. Now right on top of here, I put this larger leaf. So if I have the V, same one as the green leaves, I'm gonna put a little bit more. And I shouldn't be putting that over there because I want you to be watching these leaves and looking at what we're accomplishing here. So you could do this leaf down here, or you can turn it around and make more of this leaf. But I'm doing it a lot larger. Okay, now this is still that color, so I'm really, I need to pick up more wicker white and yellow. All right. And I'm going to come right here. There we go. See the difference? See, I kept adding moon yellow and not picking up enough white. And to me, that makes a big difference when you add that in there. And I think, I don't know why, but I felt like I needed that, so I popped that one in there back then. Also, if you can see if this is starting to look like it's transparent again, I can come right back in here. This one's going to be a focal point, so I am going to re-stroke it a little bit on this one. There we go. And I probably didn't have to because we are going to put wheat and other details in here. Okay, so now what's going to happen on here is we start filling in fillers. And I'm just going to work in this area to show you how we put fillers here because they actually are going to go around the whole wreath. But one of the things that we did were these pods. And these pods are really fun because they are like those little dry pods you see in dried arrangements, but I thought it'd be really pretty to pop some of these because it's another opportunity to add the gold. And so when I did these pods here, I base coated them first with Pueblo, and then I came with a little bit of burnt umber. So I have a little bit of yellow ochre with the Pueblo, but you know what? Mine's getting a little dry and I'm using it up a lot. So I'm gonna put more out here of the yellow ochre and the Pueblo. And let's get a little bit of fresh burnt umber. And make sure, especially when you're doing dip, see, I tap here to spread it out. The dip dots and all, you want really fresh puddles of paint. Okay, so when I went in here, I grabbed these little guys on both sides, the color on both sides, and then I'm gonna start painting those in. So let's look at this so we see where we're gonna put them and how they're gonna look. So they're sprigging out from the arrangement. So the first spot I'm gonna do is I'm doing a half circle and a half circle. All right, so these really need to dry before I can come start shading them. So I'm gonna put a couple here, and they can be different sizes, not all the same exact size is fine. And I put mostly wheat, but right in here, I did put some really pretty ones that really, see how that really adds right there in the middle? Okay, and keep going back and forth. All right, now, one more way over here. And they're gonna have stems and shading. All right, so there's a couple more on this side. Now, I want these to dry a little bit before I come back. While these pods are drying, I'm gonna start practicing with the teaching guide to get these red leaves I want to add. And the red leaves, to me, at the end, I felt like, oh, I need more small. See, it needs more small, besides the little wheat that we're gonna do. So let's practice the red leaves. We're gonna come in here and pick up on a 12 flat. We're gonna get apple red, and let's come over here and get a little bit of burnt umber, and we're just gonna work this in. So I want bright red on one side and the dark brown on the other side. All right, so as I practice this, let's put it right here and we'll practice over here, and I've got my eraser. And first of all, we're gonna come right here. We've got the blend, good. And then we're gonna start at that line, push down, and we're gonna stand up to the chisel. So pressure, chisel. So then we're gonna do our triangle right here. You have a point. No matter what size brush you use, we do the point, the two sides, and then we're gonna pull the stem into them, all right? So we're gonna remember to wipe and then practice some more. Okay, so we're gonna add these red leaves where there's a stem in a few places where I put multiple leaves. And then sometimes I just do the 3 little spurts of leaves, and sometimes filler in other areas. So I'm gonna start down in here so you'll see what I've done. And make sure you see this here to remind you of the pushing and lifting, okay? Now up here, there's a stem, so I'm gonna put a stem up here, and that's gonna help you figure out where you're gonna put, the red's gonna be where you're gonna put each leaf, and the red's gonna be on the outside edge, all right? And I could do some slender ones. So push, slide to the point, all right? And then I might put another one right in here, and you wanna pull the stem into each one of those. So what I was sharing with you down in this area is I can come right across here. I'll make sure that we can see that well. Right across here and add some burnt umber, apple red again. And I did a longer sprig here where we have multiple leaves. And I like it when they lay over each other, like the leaves fall and they're all different leaves together. But we have made this wreath arrangement that we're following here, all right? So I thought I needed bright red. You might want it darker brown. It's up to you. All right. So I'm going to continue to pick up color and continue to add a few more here and there. So down here, all this blue corner. But what happens with me is sometimes I don't have a corner. So if you don't have a corner, that's fine. But if you do, like I do, it's a great filler. Okay, so I am also going to be a little bit lower down here and add a couple more in here. There you go. All right, our 3 here, 1, 2, 3, and let's pull a stem. All right, a couple out here, and maybe even one down here. Usually I try to put a little stem on those. All right, so it just shows you that you're going to go around and add the red leaves to just make a good accent. At this point also, I'm going to come in with the burnt umber. Let's go back to our pods because they've dried. And we're going to pick up just the little bit of floating medium and a little bit of burnt umber. And then I want to do all burnt umber and do the stems. So I'm going to come right here on one side and float the darker shading. And then what's going to happen is when we come back with the treasure gold, it's going to go more on the other side. So you just come in here and shadow the underneath side. Little details, but these little details really add to your finished look. We're just knocking it up just a notch, making it stand out better. All right, so then I'm going to add more brown on the whole chisel of the brush so that these stems come out and come back. Now the stems are going to show more if I put treasure gold on one side of the burnt umber, and I can grab it and pull it. And sometimes I come back later, do it all burnt umber, and then come back and put treasure gold everywhere I feel like it needs it. All right. Now they don't bend because they're pretty stiff stems on these pods. All right. So I can put it behind or I can put it in front. All right, and the only thing that they need that we haven't done so far is if we turn to our pods, there's a little stem at the top, which is this stem, but it comes out the top. You can use your little liner to do that. Or I'm just going to come with a little bit of the treasure gold on the burnt umber. Burnt umber, treasure gold. And see, it needs to come out where the stem is added. Okay? So a little bit over here. Okay? So now we look at our piece and we figure out what we need to work on next. So remember the treasure gold comes in at the end, and I highlight a lot of things with that. But let's take a moment before we go any further and add our burnt umber into our pumpkins and our squash. All right, I also can come in here with yellow ochre and a little bit of pueblo on one corner and come back over our squash a little bit and have a little bit of the pueblo in there, which you'll see that on the teaching guides. Okay, now what I'm going to do on all the pumpkin area is I'm going to use a floating medium, and I'm going to come right back in here and pick up burnt umber, and you need a place, either foam plate or right here on the palette, to float that burnt umber. All right, and remember what we're doing on there. All right, so I'm going to come around this edge and come right down in here. So we're going to I'm going to come back and shade a little bit where the stem and where it's overlaid later by the other pumpkin. So I'm going to come along here and get that nice and clean. Back and forth to smooth it out. And it can be a little bit darker down here because it's going around back of the pumpkin. All right, so let's pick up the burnt umber again. And we can do more shading on here. And you saw that the Pueblo shaded really well on here. We can do the same thing with the brown. Too much medium, see? You're going to shade with, where are we at? Right here. We're going to shade with the Pueblo and then the burnt umber. Okay, wipe my brush off. Remember, if you don't like something, you take a wet paper towel and wipe it off. Medium, that's floating medium and burnt umber, and you're going to do it over and over again, okay? And we're floating. Come in here. See, so the Pueblo still looks really good. You can see it well. There we go. Just gives added shading. Now I also came in here and started shading the brown burnt umber color all in between the segments of squash. So I just want to show you that when you want to do the floating with the floating medium, you're going to come in here and add all this extra in here. But what you want, the extra shading, but what you want is you want everything to be dry before you start adding the brown for a couple reasons. So it doesn't move the color and you get the true shading you want, and you can take off if you put too much very easily. Isn't that kind of fun? Okay, so I am going to take, while I'm waiting for that to set up a little bit better, I'm going to get the floating medium and burnt umber, and I am going to put this on a plate and show you that I'm picking up more than normal because I want to come around here heavy. See how much heavier I've done that? And then I shade all in here more to make it look like it's underneath. I got to be careful because I just did those red leaves. All right, so we got lots of floating medium. And there's a couple other things that happen. You can come along here and put this red leaf behind the green leaf. You can put this green leaf, oops, more medium. You put this green leaf here behind the maple leaf by shading. Remember what I said, if I get on here too much on here, it's an easy fix. You just wipe it off. Let's get some more burnt umber. Let's put some more here so we're not worried about it. There we go. Now under here, a little bit of shading there. You can also shade in the middle of leaves. All right. Now I think this is dry enough. I can come in here and do a little bit of extra shading right in there. So it sets that back. You can also tap it in here. And I did put a little bit to soften that white. But yet you know it's still a white pumpkin. And at the very end, sometimes I come and intensify this even more around the leaves and around the squash and pumpkins. There we go. So see, it's heavy, heavy. And what's nice is if you shade in here, that is what we've used on the outside edge. Actually, I've got a white spot there, so I can touch that up there. All right. Same thing here. So we're going to come in here also. And all I want to do is go around the leaves and put the leaves that are underneath. And you just go around on your whole piece and you work on that. See, we can set the green leaves way back. And then we can set the maple leaf on top of the green. See the greens back here? All right. And just remember, you can always shade on one side of the leaf, and that even gives it the curled up look. So like it's split in the middle. All right. So those are some of the tricks that are going to make that look a little bit more realistic. And now well, I'm still not putting the gold on the stems yet. We're going to do that later. But I'm going to come in now and let's do that little wheat lesson where you're learning how to do the wheat. All right, so we're going to use our 12 flat brush, and we have the wheat right here. And this is like the husk on the wheat a little bit, kind of like corn. And there's all the wheat husk that we're going to stroke. All right, then at the end we come with the metallic with the treasure gold, and we add these little stems that come out from there. All right, so I'm going to move this over and let's practice. I'm going to get my paint eraser ready. All right, and these are going to be burnt umber and gold, and I'm going to go to a smaller brush. Let's pick up our 8. All right, do I have the 8? Yep. So I'm going to wet that brush, dry it, and then let's pick up yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt umber. So we can come right here and work those two in. And you're going to, after you put burnt umber once, you're just going to freshly pick up yellow ochre each time that you need it. All right? So we're going to come and make sure that we like the stroke. And then we're going to practice this where you push down and stand up. I do a chisel leaf at the top, and then all the way down here, wherever you do it on the one side, then you repeat it on the other side. All right. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to put this sprig of wheat in right in there, and then maybe one that comes up under here. All right, and one more that is going to come right in here. So let's do that, and you'll see how that's going to really add to it. All right, so let's pick up burnt umber, yellow ochre, flatten the brush, and then we will put the stem here. All right, let's do this again. I don't want to put that on there. I want you to be able to see your guide to remind you. Okay. Now, what's important is getting plenty of yellow ochre so that as we're doing this stroke, it stands out. What's nice is the treasure gold's going to go on here, so that's going to really make these stand out. So as you're doing the stroke, you can get a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's not showing. So let's get heavier yellow ochre. There, see the difference? I gotta make sure I have my burnt umber. we go. Now, yellow ochre, little, bigger, bigger. Make sure I continue to have more yellow ochre there. So you get a slightly bigger at the end. And now this one's going to be smaller, a little smaller. And one more, because by then I think that you'll see the steps to make that happen. And you put them wherever you want along your wreath. Sometimes there's some elements that are you're more favored of, and on those, you might choose to add more of those to your piece. Okay, a little bit, a little bit. Okay, so let me show you what happens to these, is that I'm going to go ahead, so you see this finished, and add the little teeny bit of water to the treasure gold on the brush, so that when you get the gold, you're rolling in there really nice. And then I'm going to take the same brush that I had with some treasure gold, which is the 8, and I can have a few of these little guys coming in here, and I have those in and around my wreath. All right. So then we're going to come in here and right in here pull up these little metallic gold streamers. So to make it show better sometimes, I kind of streak through the brown, the burnt umber a little bit, if you feel like you need it. A little bit of burnt umber and treasure gold. Make your stem in the middle, and then I don't know if you've seen these. These are pretty spiky when you see wheat. Okay, so you have to see that in the light to be able to see if it's showing. But man, when this treasure gold dries, it's amazing. Okay, this treasure gold with a little bit of burnt umber right down the center. And let's add a few in here. And they really come in between each one of those. Segments. All right, so I want to checking it out, making sure I've got everything I wanted y'all to see. Let's use our script liner with some of these comma strokes right here. See this right here? These little accents I added with a 2 script liner where I put pressure and then I lift, so it looks like a comma. And then I'm going to add some of it to lots of places in the painting. But one of the things you're going to do is, this brush was damp first. I'm not making it really inky because this paint's perfect. All right, so especially down right in here, I can lay it down and then I can lift, lay it down and lift. And these I'm going to stay up more and not lay them down so much. And then I can curve some. All right. Now I will go along in different places and add a few here and there, like where these go down into the dark. Makes it really nice into the dark shading. I add a little bit on the stem here, and we're going to add it onto our other stem. Let's put this here so y'all can see. I'm going to come right here to this stem, and I'm going to kind of twist this, and then this one's going to twist over. A little bit more paint, twist, and a little twist in there. So what happens is I get up here, what I want to do is, instead of doing the brown, I decided to do slow with just the gold. All right. Now, if you get carried away, and I have before, you can come right through here with the burnt umber and twist it on top of the gold. See that? And get a little bit of a different illusion if you want to. Okay. All right. So all kinds of different little cubbies right in here in between. You can add these little gold. That was pretty dark, so I thought I'll put a little bright pop to it. I'm going to use a flat brush to shade the gold on the pod, so that's why I'm not doing those yet. Push down and lift into that dark again. All right, and a little bit, oh, I didn't put the stem, so this is perfect. We can put a little stem here, shake it a little bit, and I can put treasure gold right on that while it's wet. And just lots of little spots here, just come around. Remember, if it's dark on darker, it shows up better. Okay, so when I'm still doing that, let me get the 8. I'll take the 8 flat. You can use the 12 or the 8 and side load just the gold, treasure gold. And you really don't have to have a medium on this, of the floating medium. You can just start painting. See how that is? I'm just picking up treasure gold on one edge, and I'm laying the brush flat and hitting the top where the glow of the top would hit on top of those. And we did the burnt umber underneath, so we did the treasure gold on top. Okay, I've shaded all the tops of the pods, so I'm going to get all treasure gold on the whole brush now. And now what I'm going to do is, here and there along where my grapevine is, I came in here just to give it this extra pop, and I'm adding just little bits of treasure gold. And it's going to make it really stand out better. Isn't that nice? It just pops. I did add some curls and swirls as you're going here, and then there's little places in between. Having a small brush, you can get in there. All right, and I just did that all around. And I didn't fret about it before. I like to kind of get everything on here before I do it, because then you'll see where it would look best to have it. All right, now let's do the little berries now. And so I'm going to pick up a little bit of water on the 2-script liner, make it inky, and I'm going to put yellow ochre, moon yellow, and a little bit of wicker white and a little bit of the treasure gold. So see, this is kind of a little dull still, so putting a little bit of that in there. I'm going to put a little metallic so you can see the treasure gold. Okay, so I'm going to put a pod there. It looked really good to put a pod right where the squash is, right in here. That's some good areas to put it right there. All right, so I'm going to take the handle of the same brush, and I've got to make sure that I have fresh paint, and you can see that I don't have fresh moon yellow. So I didn't need that much, but I put moon yellow, and let's see, my yellow ochre's fresh. So I put the little stems so they're ready for the berries, and putting that stem in between the pods made it's gonna be some bright, pretty color in there. So I'm gonna put this down so you can see me as I'm picking it up. I dip dot, and what you're gonna do is have heavier berries at the bottom, and I'm just gonna go along the stem, and you see how many I can get, a couple large ones and small ones, and then I'm gonna get smaller as I go. Now I can go all the way around and just do the yellow ochre first, or I can just come in and not clean off the brush, just come in and pick up the brush handle. Pick up more of the moon yellow. And then I come back later and I will do all of the treasure gold as I go. All right, so these are just berry sprays that are in here, but look how they pop. See a little bit heavier berries down here. I like these. I think they really add to the piece, and it's just a little bit of pizzazz, and when you put a little treasure gold in there, you're going to get that pretty reflection too. All right, and so you can see that on the blue, you can see that back in the shadows here, and see all of this is kind of the same shading. So let's come in here and show you the difference when we add it here. So you want them all coming out from the center like they were attached. Some people, some painters as they're painting, they will have it disconnected and it's in different spots and it's not even coming from somewhere. They have to be like you've put them in, attached them into the wreath. So that's going to help you when you're designing it to see how you're going to do it. Okay. Now to me, that took my eyes away from all just treasure gold to the pop of this bright little berries on here. And then let's get our treasure gold dots. Okay, you got to make sure that that treasure gold hasn't got a film on the top. It lasts a long time without doing that, but just make sure. And a handle, or if you want them way smaller, a sharpened pencil or a stylus is way better. I've seen many take the tip of the brush and you do not get the nice little dots, and I like them raised. Okay, and see, we're just going to put this treasure gold down inside on this because there's so much treasure gold on the outside already. Okay, let's see. Now you're going to just keep repeating that feel and that look around. If you have areas that you feel like you need to come back and put a little red leaf right in there maybe, but you just create and enjoy while you're creating. Okay, here's our finished piece, because I want to show you how I continued it around the wreath. And this right in here where you can add some extra red in there, some extra green coming in there, shading. So just kind of have fun with it and add some extra colors here and there. You can see I added a little bit more red to this one. And as I'm putting these little berries, You can put them all in here, and I did occasionally, oh, right there, put a teeny bit of white, which I didn't do that on mine, but I wanted to show you this. See all the different little leaves and sprays, so it continues up this way, and this one flows all the way to here, and then this side flows up like this. So imagine as you're stuffing in your leaves and all into your real wreath, real grapevine wreath, how you would place them in there to make it look like a complete design. And that's our September wreath. I had so much fun painting with you today and everything we learned. So we did 2 pumpkins, we did a squash, we did pods. I love pods, I think they're fun. And we put wheat in it, we did comma strokes, we did all kinds of beautiful colored leaves. Isn't that great? I love that. And to top it off, we used treasure gold as accents all over this beautiful wreath. And I want to see pictures. Take pictures. Take them in your house, take them on your door. I've seen all kinds of beautiful pictures on our Facebook group. Are you part of that Facebook group? It is Let's Paint with Plaid on Facebook. That's what I want you to do. Go join us. You will have so much fun seeing everybody's beautiful work. They share Andy's and they share my painting. They share other Jessie does things during the month. So come join us. You are going to enjoy that site. And I also want to keep inviting you to go to plaidonline.com/Let's Paint to get all your painting needs for our Let's Paint program. So until next time, go hang your September wreath, and we'll see you next month.